My parents sent me a message that read, "You're not invited to dinner. Your brother's girlfriend isn't comfortable around you." This came shortly after I had poured $320,000 into their business. My only reply was a simple, "All right." And just like that, I halted all future payments and erased 101 receipts from my records. They started calling me, frantically, but I didn't answer. I was busy sitting across from one of their top competitors, discussing how I could help scale their brand instead.
Hey, Hedge.
You'd assume that after transferring over 300 grand into someone's dream, they'd have the decency to treat you like you belong. Turns out, I was mistaken. My name is Camila. I'm 31, single, child-free, and have spent my adult life grinding tirelessly to build a solid foundation. I run a boutique marketing agency that serves small and mid-sized businesses. It took me a full decade to get to this point, profitable, respected, and entirely self-made. My parents, on the other hand, always projected this illusion of prosperity. They owned a family restaurant that hovered just above breaking even. My younger brother Mason, 2 years my junior, was always the apple of their eye. Not because he did anything extraordinary, but simply because he existed. I, on the other hand, was the overachiever, the fixer, the one who faded into the background unless I was needed. I suppose that's when I became needed. Toward the end of last year, my parents came to me, desperate. The restaurant had suffered immensely post-pandemic, and every loan application they submitted was being denied. I remember my dad sitting at my kitchen table, his hands trembling while he confessed they were weeks away from defaulting. My mother sat beside him, crying softly. They pleaded with me to help them rebrand, pivot, digitize the business. It sounded like a risky venture, but I let my emotions get the better of me. I wanted to believe their desperation was sincere. After countless late-night conversations, I finally agreed, not to loan the money, but to invest. I had them sign partnership contracts. I wanted full transparency and structure. I would provide funding in phases, up to $320,000, based on performance and reporting. In return, I'd own 49% of the restructured business, while they retained 51% as original owners. With all paperwork finalized, I dove in. I brought in a branding team, redesigned their website, streamlined their delivery system, partnered with influencers to promote their new menu, and hired staff to manage social media and event planning. Within 6 months, the business was thriving. Revenue had tripled, they were being featured on local food blogs, and my mom had started doing cooking live streams on Instagram. Everything felt stable for the first time in a long while. At least, I thought so, until Brielle came along. Brielle was Mason's new girlfriend, a polished PR professional who knew exactly how to work a room. From the moment we met, I sensed she was sizing me up. She threw out subtly judgmental comments like, "Oh, no kids yet," and "must be hard balancing dating with such a demanding career." I let it slide. I didn't need her approval. But she began appearing at every single family event, dinners, birthdays, even casual brunches, and always found subtle ways to make me feel like the outsider. The atmosphere would shift the second I walked in, like my presence was a disruption. Still, I kept my composure until the previous week. I had just completed the final phase of my investment, transferring the last $100,000, making my total contribution $320,000. I sent over all necessary documents, receipts, tax files, financial summaries. Everything was meticulously organized. Later that same evening, I sent a text to my mom asking about dinner on Sunday. Her response shocked me. "You're not invited. Belle doesn't feel comfortable around you. We don't want any drama." I stared at that message, stunned. My jaw actually dropped. I replied with just one word. "Okay." Then I walked to my home office, sat down, and opened the digital folder I had created for their business. It was filled with every receipt, invoice, contract, email chain, and Zoom meeting summary. But I remembered something. Most of the detailed payment confirmations had never been uploaded to their shared systems. Only summarized versions existed on their end. Quietly, I deleted 101 detailed receipts from my cloud. I removed files from their drives. I canceled the pending payment to the ad agency and paused the entire marketing rollout scheduled for that week. I locked them out of every digital dashboard I had created under my name, under my systems, and in my networks. Then I shut off my phone. The following morning, I woke up to 23 missed calls. My parents. Mason. The voicemails began with confusion, transitioned to panic, and ended in anger. They had shown up at the restaurant expecting a fully launched campaign. Instead, there was silence.
Blank screens, no influencer promotions, no digital buzz.
Just a ghost town. I gave them 2 days. On the third, I received an email from my father. The subject line read, "Urgent. We need to talk." The email was brief. "We didn't mean to leave you out. Belle was the one uncomfortable. Please reconsider. We're finally doing well. Don't ruin this." That's when it hit me. They never saw me as an equal partner. I was a bank, a safety net, a silent investor meant to fund but never challenge, never be present. The moment I became inconvenient to someone they valued, they cut me out without hesitation. It wasn't about one dinner, it was about being disposable. But I didn't respond. I was occupied with something better. I had already taken a meeting with a young couple running a struggling modern fusion cafe just 3 blocks away. I pitched them the same strategies I'd used with my parents. Only this time, it would be under my own firm, and they'd be paying in full.
No partnerships.
No blurred lines. They agreed immediately. I signed the contract the very next day. The morning after, I drove past my parents' restaurant. The lights were off. The sign I had designed, once a beacon of new beginnings, was dim and flickering. And I thought, funny how quickly things fall apart when they forget who was keeping them together. And this was only the beginning. Willow and Sage, the little cafe I had decided to partner with, took off in a way that caught even me by surprise. Everything I had done for my parents I replicated, but sharper, faster, cleaner. The rebranding was crisp, the ads were geo-targeted and optimized, the loyalty system was sleek and user-friendly. I launched a weekly recipe reel series that drew in more foot traffic than any discount ever could. And to top it off, I forged a strategic partnership with a yoga studio across the street to host collaborative brunch events. People showed up. People talked. People posted. And this time, I wasn't behind the curtain. My name was stamped on every campaign, every piece of media, every newsletter. I wasn't a ghost anymore. I was the architect. Within 2 weeks, food bloggers began reaching out. Many of them remembered the rapid transformation of my parents' restaurant and were curious how the same magic was now happening at a new place. Once I told them the truth, that I had been behind both ventures, that I had never been credited the first time around, they were floored. One of them ended up writing a feature story titled "The Woman Behind the Brand," how Camila Hartwell built 2 restaurant empires and chose the right one. It exploded locally. By the end of that month, Willow and Sage was doing triple the revenue my parents' restaurant had ever seen, even at its peak. That was when the real cracks began to show. My parents kept trying to call me, their numbers filling up my missed calls list. I ignored everyone. Mason began sending emotionally manipulative texts, oscillating between guilt-tripping and outright rage. He accused me of tearing the family apart, of punishing our parents, just to prove some kind of point. But I knew him better than that. Mason didn't care about the restaurant. What he missed was Belle's influencer perks, her comped meals, her Instagrammable brunches, her curated aesthetic that lived off my unpaid labor. That's what this tantrum was really about. Access. Belle even had the audacity to message me directly. Her text read, "I think you're overreacting. Families should have boundaries. Just because I don't vibe with you doesn't mean you should tank their future." I didn't waste a reply. I hearted the message and blocked her. But the moment I had been waiting for came a few days later. My receptionist buzzed my office and said, in a slightly concerned whisper, "There's a man here. He says he's your father." I hadn't told anyone in my company what had been happening, but I stood up, walked down the hallway, and found him sitting in our polished waiting room, looking nothing like the man I remembered. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes hollow. He stood as I approached, his voice low and shaky. "Camila, please. Just 10 minutes." I folded my arms and raised one brow.
He sighed.
Your mother hasn't been sleeping. We're 2 months behind on rent. We tried applying for a loan again, but they said the books were too unstable. We need your help again. That last word, again, was the dagger. As if it was something I was supposed to do on autopilot. I gestured to the door. You're not my responsibility anymore, I said, voice steady. Neither is your failure. His face dropped like I'd slapped him. But I wasn't done. You didn't just exclude me from dinner. You erased me. After I gave everything, money, time, expertise, my reputation, and the second someone younger and shinier had a problem with me, you threw me away like I was never there. It was never about dinner, Dad.
It was about respect.
Or lack of it. He sank into a chair slowly, his hands trembling. I had never seen my father look so small. I turned and walked away. My receptionist didn't meet my eyes when I passed her. I think, finally, she understood why I had been distant and cold lately. She didn't say a word. 3 days after that visit, I received a certified letter from their attorney. They wanted to buy me out. The offer? $30,000. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled coffee on the letter. That wouldn't even cover the influencer contracts I had set up before pulling out. So I had my lawyer respond, with precision. We requested a full reimbursement of my $320,000 investment, plus 8% interest, compounded monthly from the date of the final payment. I attached a detailed record of every expense I had covered, every contract, invoice, campaign, and vendor I personally brought in. But that wasn't the kicker. The real demand? A public acknowledgement across all their digital platforms, admitting I was the founding investor and strategic partner responsible for their rebranding success. And I wanted it in writing, permanently posted. They didn't respond. So, I escalated. My accountant sent formal notices to their suppliers flagging ownership discrepancies. Once vendors realized I still held legal claim to 49% of the business, several of them suspended services until the matter was resolved. My parents' restaurant, already bleeding out, was now flatlining. Meanwhile, Willow and Sage was soaring. We just landed a citywide catering contract with a tech startup campus. And a local TV station had reached out, interested in featuring our chef on a recurring recipe segment. Suddenly, my story was being talked about. The woman who was cut out of her family's legacy, only to rise up and create something bigger, brighter, and fully hers. And then, the final nail. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from an unknown number. I don't usually answer those, but something told me to pick up. It was my mother. She was crying, real tears this time. She told me the restaurant was closing. They were being evicted for unpaid rent. All the staff had quit. Mason had moved in with Belle and barely called anymore. The family, she said, was in pieces. She asked me in a broken voice, "Is there anything you can do? Anything at all?" I let the silence hang in the air. Then I said, yes. I could fix it. I could restructure it all. Make some calls, pull a few strings. It would take me a week. I let her hope flicker. Then I said, but I won't. Her breath caught. Because some people learn through guidance, I continued, and others only learn through loss. You taught me I was disposable. Now you get to learn what that costs. And I hung up. No rage.
No regret.
Just a clarity I had earned. Later that night, I received an email from a major local publication. They were doing a story on modern entrepreneurs and wanted to feature Willow and Sage as the lead. The editor asked me to submit a title. I sent back one line. Sometimes the only way to build something beautiful is to let the rotten foundation collapse. Like and subscribe if you believe in building your worth, even if it means walking away from the ones who never saw it.